Some brave and experienced warriors from the tribe of Gad also defected to David while he was at the stronghold in the wilderness. They were expert with both shield and spear, as fierce as lions and as swift as deer on the mountains. These warriors from Gad were army commanders. The weakest among them could take on 100 regular troops, and the strongest could take on 1,000. These were the men who crossed the Jordan River during its seasonal flooding at the beginning of the year and drove out all the people living in the lowlands on both the east and west banks. And you wonder why they were so successful militarily. What's up, cool people? My name is Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright, 1 Chronicles chapter 12. So, looking into some of the history of God's people, kind of this being for the purpose of the exiles in Babylon, to kind of let them know how they got to that position. So we went through a genealogy to kind of explain at least who they came from, because there might be some history that they would know in their individual tribes and clans tied to some of these specific names. But then it shifted a little bit to more like some history instead of just straight genealogy. Mentioned Saul's death and the transition to David as king. Last chapter talked about a bunch of David's mighty warriors that were, accomplished in battle. Perhaps allowing some of the people who were exiled to recognize those names and tie themselves to those people, so then they can feel a little bit more connected with the eventual thing that it's leading to, which is, here's where things went wrong, and probably following from that, what they could do to make it right again. But here we go. 1 Chronicles chapter 12. The following men joined David at Ziklag while he was hiding from Saul, son of Kish. They were among the warriors who fought beside David in battle. All of them were expert archers, and they could shoot arrows or sling stones with their left hand as well as their right. They were all relatives of Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. Their leader was Ahiezer, son of Shemaiah, from Gibeah. His brother Joash was second in command. These were the other warriors: Jeziel and Pelet, sons of Asmaveth; Berekah; Jehu from Anathoth; Ishmaiah from Gibeon, a famous warrior and leader among the 30; Jeremiah, Jahaziel, Johanan, and Jozabad from Gedera; Eluzai, Jeremoth, Bealiah, Shemariah, and Shephatiah from Haroth; Elkanah, Ishiah, Azarel, Joezer, and Jashobeam, who were Korahites, not Kohathites, totally different thing. Joelah and Zebediah, sons of Jeroham from Gedor. Okay, so hang on. Just my distinction of Korahites versus Kohathites. I think Kohathites were from among the tribe of Levi. They would very likely not have been involved in any fighting, because being Levites, they helped with either the tabernacle or the temple, depending on the time. But basically helping the priests out with, offerings and other taking care of other probably logistical things as well. Different ways of assisting the priests with their duties. So as Levites, they probably would not have been doing much combat wise. So the previous chapter talked about mighty warriors in David's army who I guess were there sort of from the get-go, or maybe that was just a broader scope thing, and this is now focusing specifically on, warriors who joined David's army kind of almost defecting from Saul. It doesn't say they were defecting from Saul, although it mentions a bunch of them being relatives of Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. And apparently they were ambidextrous. It says they could shoot arrows or sling stones with their left hand as well as their right. So, I mean, these were definitely not warriors who were with David, like, right from the get-go, like, from the time he was anointed or first became commander or whatever. But these were also accomplished warriors who just happened to join David's crew at a later time. Anyway, note right here, verses 12:4b to 40 are numbered 12:5 to 41 in the Hebrew text. Okay, so just initially there was a break right right in this spot here after it mentioning the 30. And that just ends up with there being another numbered verse in the Hebrew text. But, you know, with there being other ancient texts that they probably pulled from for the translations, maybe there was a reason that they kept that verse going. Anyway, okay. So those were a bunch of warriors that joined David eventually. On to verse 8. Some brave and experienced warriors from the tribe of Gad also defected to David while he was at the stronghold in the wilderness. They were expert with both shield and spear, as fierce as lions and as swift as deer on the mountains. Ezer was their leader, Obadiah was second, Eliab was third, Mishmannah was fourth, Jeremiah was fifth, Attai was sixth, Elio was seventh, Johanan was eighth, Elzabad was ninth, Jeremiah was 10th, Machbenai was 11th. These warriors from Gad were army commanders. The weakest among them could take on 100 regular troops, and the strongest could take on 1,000. These are the men who crossed the Jordan River during its seasonal flooding at the beginning of the year and drove out all the people living in the lowlands on both the east and west banks. Others from Benjamin and Judah came to David at the stronghold. David went out to meet them and said, "If you have come in peace to help me, we are friends. But if you have come to betray me to my enemies when I am innocent, then may the God of our ancestors see it and punish you." Okay, maybe I should have paused a little bit before that, because then it seems like it's continuing the dialogue. But, anyway, so, yeah, now it seems to be more so getting into warriors who joined David's army basically when he was, like, on the run from Saul, so to speak. Maybe not necessarily always on the run, but, like, you know, when Saul was out to kill him, so he was at least a refugee of sorts. So these men that it just mentioned in this section were specifically from the tribe of Gad. And also very good in combat. The weakest among them could take on 100 regular troops. Like, geez. And you wonder why they were so successful militarily. Okay. So then it got a little bit into this whole thing with others from Benjamin and Judah coming to him at the stronghold. Then we'll pick it up in verse 18. Yeah, that's where I left it. Then the Spirit came upon Amasai, the leader of the 30, and he said, "We are yours, David. We are on your side, son of Jesse. Peace and prosperity be with you, and success to all who help you, for your God is the one who helps you." So David let them join him, and he made them officers over his troops. Now, hang on. Amasai was the leader of the 30. So, maybe even a bunch of the names that it mentioned in the previous chapter were not necessarily there with him from the get-go. It's just, that was broader view. Alright, here's, like, these were sort of the most notable warriors among David's armies. And now this is getting more so into when they, became part of David's army. Not much else that I have to say there. On to verse 19. Some men from Manasseh defected from the Israelite army and joined David when he set out with the Philistines to fight against Saul. But as it turned out, the Philistine rulers refused to let David and his men go with them. After much discussion, they sent them back, for they said, "It will cost us our heads if David switches loyalties to Saul and turns against us." Here is a list of the men from Manasseh who defected to David as he was returning to Ziklag: Adnah, Jozabad, Jediel, Michael, or Mikhael, Jozabad, Elihu, and Zilithai. Each commanded 1,000 troops from the tribe of Manasseh. They helped David chase down bands of raiders, for they were all brave and able warriors who became commanders in his army. Day after day, more men joined David until he had a great army, like the army of God. Okay, so... now it uses the word defected here specifically. So, like... considering the fact that it used that same word earlier as well, I would say most, if not all, of these men mentioned in this chapter are ones who were initially siding with Saul in that sort of conflict, tension, whatever you want to call it, as far as who to be loyal to. But then, they might have sided with Saul initially, but then eventually went over to David's side. Because David was righteous throughout all this. Saul, not so much. Like, it was because of Saul being unrighteous that David even had to be anointed when he was in the first place. So, a bunch of these guys from Manasseh joined David's army right around the time when they were going to actually, join the Philistines against Saul, but the Philistines decided against letting them go and join that battle because they were worried about David's men kind of betraying them and siding with Saul. Because, the Philistines knew that David was from Israel's side initially. He fought Goliath for Israel. So, they all knew quite well that David, as much effort as he might have put into convincing them that he was on their side now, or at least that he was against Saul, they still, somewhere in the back of their minds, were like, okay, but what if this is all just some sort of scheme to betray us and further weaken us. But it worked out even better for David then, because during that time it turned out some raiders had gone to what was then kind of his headquarters in Ziklag, had raided that town, taken a bunch of things, maybe even some people. And since they weren't involved in the fight against Saul, they were able to then track those raiders down. Okay, on to verse 23. These are the numbers of armed warriors who joined David at Hebron. They were all eager to see David become king instead of Saul, just as the Lord had promised. From the tribe of Judah, there were 6,800 warriors armed with shields and spears. From the tribe of Simeon, there were 7,100 brave warriors. From the tribe of Levi, there were 4,600 warriors. This included Jehoiada, leader of the family of Aaron, who had 3,700 under his command. It also included Zadok, a brave young warrior, with 22 members of his family who were all officers. Okay, real quick, I guess that just completely throws away my logic that I mentioned before when I was it earlier in this chapter or the previous one, I'm not sure, where I almost mixed up Korahites and Kohathites, and I was like, oh, well, one was from the tribe of Levi, so they wouldn't have been involved in battle. Wrong. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, and it's obvious. But even though my logic didn't follow in that case, I mean, they were still different clans or whatever. Okay, anyway. From the tribe of Benjamin, Saul's relatives, there were 3,000 warriors. Most of the men from Benjamin had remained loyal to Saul until this time. From the tribe of Ephraim, there were 20,800 brave warriors, each highly respected in his own clan. From the half-tribe of Manasseh, west of the Jordan, 18,000 men were designated by name to help David become king. From the tribe of Issachar, there were 200 leaders of the tribe with their relatives. All these men understood the signs of the times and knew the best course for Israel to take. From the tribe of Zebulun, there were 50,000 skilled warriors. They were fully armed and prepared for battle and completely loyal to David. From the tribe of Naphtali, there were 1,000 officers and 37,000 warriors armed with shields and spears. From the tribe of Dan, there were 28,600 warriors, all prepared for battle. From the tribe of Asher, there were 40,000 trained warriors, all prepared for battle. From the east side of the Jordan River, where the tribes of Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh lived, there were 120,000 troops armed with every kind of weapon. All these men came in battle array to Hebron with the single purpose of making David the king over all Israel. In fact, everyone in Israel agreed that David should be their king. They feasted and drank with David for 3 days, for preparations had been made by their relatives for their arrival. And people from as far away as Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali brought food on donkeys, camels, mules, and oxen. Vast supplies of flour, fig cakes, clusters of raisins, wine, olive oil, cattle, sheep, and goats were brought to the celebration. There was great joy throughout the land of Israel when David became king. So, okay. When it's talking about those who joined David at Hebron, I think, you know what, actually let me backtrack to the previous chapter real quick. Yeah, because all Israel gathered before David at Hebron to essentially proclaim him king after Saul's death. So then, the warriors who were mentioned before this past part, before verse 23 essentially, in this chapter, I guess maybe had joined David before he was, like, ultra officially named king. But all the rest of these warriors wound up joining the army after / as David became king. And there was much rejoicing and celebration. Also, that's a lot of troops. Just saying. It breaks down, like, all the different tribes and how many from each tribe joined the army. Although it's not super specific about Issachar. It says there were 200 leaders of the tribe with their relatives. It doesn't say how many relatives they had. I mean, clearly it was more than 200. Probably, you know, I would almost be willing to say, even like, assume probably about 5 relatives per. I don't know. Might be a relatively small number compared to the other tribes. But they also still had an important role in David's success, because they, as it says, knew the best course for Israel to take. Strategy is just as, if not more important, a lot of times, than actual just pure military might. So, yeah. And I guess, am I to assume this is all just on top of the previous troops who had joined? I mean, it doesn't really necessarily number other warriors earlier in the chapter. But in any case, a lot of troops either way. So, yeah. That is... I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot else to say. I do find it interesting that at least some of the tribes, if not all of them, it kind of mentions not only how many there were, but, like, kind of in a way the role that they played within David's army. Okay. So I guess that's going to do it for First Chronicles chapter 12. Maybe after this we'll get into... Yeah, now it's getting into some less military-related stuff. But still kind of continuing the history. I mean, it's Chronicles. That's kind of the definition of... Anyway, okay. Before I carry on too much further, that's it for now. Okay, so the past couple of chapters have had a lot about David's warriors in his army and whatnot. This more specifically kind of got into when some of them joined him. And if they didn't do it before he was basically proclaimed king by everyone in Israel at Hebron, they definitely joined him after that. And yeah, lots of different types of warriors from different tribes with different skill sets and all that. So, like, while it's still not exactly genealogy, it's definitely getting into some of the history and, you know, any of the exiles that were reading or hearing this originally, you know, might have been able to get a better sense of their family history. Kind of like we would from an Ancestry.com type thing. I know that was part of the discussion when I was recording some of these videos before in First Chronicles. But yeah, it's like... It's sort of a history lesson in the way that, like, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. And if you're trying to learn from past mistakes, that should help. But for now, the history or the Chronicles, thus why the books are named that way, continue. So, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff like that. And down below all that, leave your thoughts and questions in the comment section. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. Whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.